And we're live.
Oh, yes, and we're cold. It's good to be alive,
Yes.
but I'll tell you, it's refreshing when you go outdoors these days. And
It is.
this morning I walked out and went, oh. Anyway, I can't automatically start my car, but sometimes I forget and then go, oh, I wish I had done that. Right? Anyway, we have a guest tonight.
Yes.
Petrusia Hontar is with us tonight. We're going to talk all about workforce development and the great work that is happening in Elgin, Middlesex, and Oxford, having to do with workforce development. And we'll certainly take your questions. And if you're watching and you want to remind all your friends in the neighborhood, yell out the front door, Mayor's Update's on. Do everything you can do to get other people to watch and share with your friends. It's important.
Absolutely.
Grayden, I keep getting updates, of reminders of 5 years ago and 6 years ago of shows we did. Right?
Yeah.
It's been that long that we've been doing open forum, everything ST.Thomas, and answering every question that we get. And I shared this with other mayors, and you saw last week we had Josh Morgan on with us from the City of London, and what a great show that was. Josh did a great job with us too.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not as tempted to do what we do, where we just say, okay, well, once a week, tell us everything you want to know and ask us every question you have.
Crazy.
And we have fun. Right? But tonight, so Petrusia, you've been around town for a long time doing many, many things, but the workforce development is kind of new to you. It's you're getting used to the new job, and
I'm getting used to the new job. It's been a whirlwind. Started in July, so it feels like I just started yesterday.
Well, you're getting good. So let's first talk about the EmployerOne survey.
Absolutely.
Now that is due in the next 2 days. So if you're watching tonight and you're an employer, please, and we've put the EmployerOne survey on tonight, and so you look it up, you can get there. It's a great survey for employers to talk about what you think next year will look like, what 2025 will look like, and it really helps us from a workforce development trying to plan the employment status of Oxford, Elgin, Middlesex, and what types of jobs there might be, and the way we look forward. Because of the EmployerOne survey and what's happened over a number of years, we can look at other things like skilled trades and what should be being taught, how many spaces do we need at our colleges and universities, that type of thing. So tell us a bit about, and I'm going to admit tardiness. I have not done my EmployerOne survey yet. I've started it twice, and if you do start it and go back to the same computer, you can finish it. You don't have to restart over again. It's at best 20 minutes worth of filling in kind of yes or no answers and not very much essay questions, because I never was any good at that. So tell us about what the EmployerOne survey gives to the Workforce Development Board when it's all collected and rolled up.
Absolutely. So we do collect where our businesses are from. So that's really nice. So we work with the London Economic Region, which is what Elgin, Middlesex, and Oxford are called. But we are able to aggregate that data and say what's actually happening in Elgin. So hopefully, as long as we get enough responses from Elgin and St.Thomas, then we're able to give the data. And what we're looking for we ask questions about how did you hire? What did your hiring process look like? What did you use to hire? What tools did you use? Trying to see maybe if there's some room for improvement or for some opportunities for us to support that. We also look at separation. So why do you think people are leaving? Is it because you're seeing a big retirement, or is it because people are quitting? And just trying to understand what is going on, what you're experiencing as an employer. So, and then we also ask about skilled trades. What kind of supports do you have for skilled trades? Are you able to get people in? Because we know with the skilled trades, there's not really a education pathway that doesn't include employers. And with our apprenticeship networks, we need the employers to be part of that. So if we're not seeing the engagement from our employers to upper skilled trades, we're going to suffer in long-term employment. So we definitely ask that.
So EmployerOne is a dynamic thing. It's done once a year, but it's data that's collected that is looked at over and over again as to here's what we said growth would be this year. Here's what employment growth would be. Here's what the jobs might be. Here's some of the pay things. Here's who we thought would also collapse this year or retire this year, aging out or moving on to other jobs. And as we have large employers coming into our community now, you and I talk a lot about PowerCo and what we will do for the over 3,000 jobs that are going to be there and how will we fill it. So EmployerOne helps us know what the existing employers need, but it also lets us forecast, at least for this year out, and because of that, looking forward.
Absolutely. It helps us know how prepared are we. And really helps us just kind of like plan, because if we just say, oh, in Toronto they're having these kind of jobs, and we're going to base our training and our workforce development on what's happening in the big city of Toronto,
Right.
we're not going to be prepared for the reality that is Elgin County.
Right.
We have a lot of manufacturing jobs that you're not seeing in other places. We have a lot of agriculture jobs. And we need to really say, like, what are we doing to make sure that those industries are still supported with our workforce development? So, yeah.
Can you give examples of what's happened in the past, like how this has helped in the past?
Yeah, so we use it for planning and for training. So our website is, we host a local jobs aggregator, and what it is we take 21 different job boards and we put them into one spot. And that was as a result of saying people are having the struggles of getting the word of what's available when they're hiring out.
Region-wide.
Region-wide,
Not just in your neighborhood, but region-wide.
Absolutely.
You have a workforce that's region-wide.
Yeah, but also, like, so our job board, for instance, instead of you looking on one platform and getting 1,000 jobs, if you look under ours, you get 6,000 jobs right now. And you can look down and say, what's actually happening just in St. Thomas? I don't want to leave St. Thomas when I go to work. What are the jobs in St. Thomas?
Yeah, and you can put that in as a filter.
You can put that in
just getting the St. Thomas jobs if you want. No, it's a fantastic job board. And we answer a lot, even on here or on the mayor's email every day.
Yeah.
Well, what jobs are there out there? Well, have you visited any of our colleagues, like at Employment Services Elgin or at Fanshawe College? If you haven't gone there first, maybe you're not even ready yet with a resume or anything else. But through the workforce development, it's a rounding up of all of the great things that can happen. And the EmployerOne survey gives that outlook. Next year's, okay, what do we have to be ready for, right?
Absolutely.
And I think now, as we start to look forward to a heavy construction year or two, having to do with PowerCo, and of course the recovery of the housing industry, the single market housing industry and the apartment housing industry, those would be prime employers in the coming year. And do we have the skilled trades that match those?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have the construction? Do we have the know-how? Because when you're looking at construction projects, you want to make sure that we're getting people from the local area to build, because if we are bringing people from outside the community, where are they going to live while they're building?
Well, we have to look at housing, and if we can get local, we don't have to look at housing.
Absolutely.
Boy, how many times have we said that one?
So many. Yeah. So on our website, you can also so it feeds all this information into one spot, and then you can also take out and get really great reports. So you can say, this month, what were the top jobs that were posted? So you can really look at like live data and say who's posting, what are people paying? Because if an employer wants to be competitive, they need to stay on top of, if I'm looking at all the other jobs in my sector, am I paying a competitive wage? Am I going to attract the people to our community?
Am I not attracting people, and why? And that might tell you the story.
Right? Yeah.
Right? So, or I'm attracting a lot. Maybe I'm
paying too much.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case in too many places. So, right. All right. So that's it. Look, don't be tardy. You got a couple of days to finish your EmployerOne survey. Even if you're an employer of one, you're self-employed, that company can enter and do EmployerOne survey also. But if you're an employer of any number of employees, please fill out your EmployerOne survey today, tomorrow. Wait till after Mayor's Update. Please don't stop and do it on your computer while you're doing Mayor's Update. And we want you to pay full attention.
Yeah. And we've got a question in here.
Fire.
It's from Brett, and it says, does the Workforce Development Board survey support employing the local workforce? And if so, how?
I'm not sure what you mean by that question. We have local people who work at the Workforce Planning Board that do it, but what it does is really helps us understand what is happening in terms of the businesses. So how are they employing people? What is it looking like? But it also looks to see if we are anticipating one of our employers is going to be seeing a lot of retirements, then we can work with them. We don't work specifically with employers, but we do have the employment services sector that does. So we work very closely. They follow the survey
to say the numbers say.
Yeah, they're partners on the survey. So it's called EmployerOne partially because we have a lot of partners who have come together, and instead of each of them giving a survey with their small questions, we've all worked together to say what are the things that we need on here. So the data does come back to them. We don't share the employer information. So if you're in an employer, you put your business name in there. I'm not going to tell Joe, I'm not going to tell everyone what you answer and those questions.
But you can roll it up.
I can
into
roll it
the
up and I
service
can,
industry. And,
yeah.
Right.
So you'll remain anonymous when you do that, but we will sometimes look aggregating per sector, so we can put all the manufacturing jobs together for the region and say what's going on manufacturing, or we can do the same thing with healthcare. So, and then we work to feed that in and see if we anticipate some issues coming up, and we can work together. But yeah.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to another great big thing you have going on.
Yes.
Tell us about Embrace.
Very exciting project. So another result of the survey is trying to see that, or looking to see that we have a lot of skilled trades places that are struggling to attract people. It's always hard to get people into those jobs. And there's a lot of reasons, a complicated system for sure. And also, I should say, skilled trades. What's the first thing you think about when you think of skilled trades?
Well, the apprenticeship system and how hard it is to find an employer that will accept someone to get the skill part of skilled trades.
Right. So this event is meant to inform our employers of all the parts of the system that are there to help them. So we can't actually go and physically hire someone to be an apprentice. We don't have that kind of system that they use in Europe. We have an employer-led system, which means an employer is like, I want to hire an apprentice. And they put essentially a job posting, and then an apprentice, someone who wants to be apprentice finds that and gets matched. But people aren't going to do that if they feel like they have no support. So what we've done is we're bringing together, I think, 7 different partners. So we have Skilled Trade Ontario, which is the ministry that's going to say, these are the paperwork, all that boring stuff that has to get done that makes you registered. So they'll be in the room. We'll have people from the school board, from the OEP system. We'll have people from the Supporting Ontario Youth, the employment services sector, the post-secondary schools, so saying that what it is that they do. So basically, we have every single piece of the puzzle, and how they're going to be there to tell the employers what it is that they can support you with and how you can get access. All of these services are free, and they're available in our community. So we're just trying to make sure that you know where to go to help.
Where the next step is. Move one booth down and learn the next thing.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Yeah.
But you would think that there'd be a natural connection, Petrusia, but it hasn't always been that way. It
hasn't.
Where do we go next? Or an employer says, I'm thinking I'm going to need 2 more plumbers in the future. And so I want to bring them on as apprentices. And then what the ratio used to be in the provincial government of how many plumbers could be teaching new apprentices, and that's changing all the time. And then they have to end up at our community colleges also as some of the skilled trades. And you'd think it would be natural, but it is not. There is no natural connection. And so by you putting this all in one room on one night, we start to make the friendships that are needed to be a good employer who wants to bring on more apprentices.
Yeah, and we've put the people in the room that you will be connecting with. So we're not putting in someone who's like their friend's friend. It's we're going to have the people in the room that you'll have their contact, and when you need that support, you'll be able to connect with them. So it's a great opportunity to figure it all out. There's so many supports.
And you don't have to be out in the cold and pay the full bill yourself in some of these cases. These skilled trades and apprenticeships are needed across the board, whether it's in the medical sector or in the skilled trade sector, construction-wise, or in the skilled trades, chemistry. All of this stuff is needed. And so the Ontario government has been putting in a great deal of supports that you can tap into as an employer to help defray the cost of somebody who's learning. Now, over time, that somebody who's learning in your workplace also becomes a benefit to you. But in the beginning, it's a learning thing. And so that's the point, is find out how to do this well in your workplace and how to make it fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to also look at all, like you mentioned, that there's all the trades. And that means there's ECEs, which we know is a huge need in our community. But it also means hairdressers.
That's early childhood educators. For any of you who are still looking for daycare,
I believe
we've gone even tuition free on ECEs, or very close to it.
Very close.
And the rate of pay for ECEs has really gone up, but there's a skill to it. You've got to learn how to do the job. And so great. Yeah. So tell us the date and time and where.
So that event is on January 29th in the evening. So it's 5 until 8 o'clock. And that's at the Queso station.
Yeah.
Great venue. But you do need to pre-register. There is a $25 fee, but if that is a barrier to you, then please connect with us. We want to make sure that this information gets to as many people as we can. We're really just trying to connect. And I think Brett's been asking some questions, and I think I can clarify a little bit about our role as the
Go
workforce
ahead.
planning role. So our role is first off to get labor market information into the community. So what that means is we are the ones taking the data that we're getting from our job board and getting it to the planners, to the systems people, but also finding ways to get that to employers. So all those reports you can get as an employer on our website. So if you're say wanting to say, oh, who else is hiring out there? Am I being competitive? You can find that information as an employer.
Yeah.
So that is our role, to say, how can we get local
You share
data?
both levels of government's information on all things employment.
Yes, yeah. And then we also, we just got a request today about what is the wage for this occupation. And
Right.
so we were able to dig that up for someone and get the report over to who they needed. So I'm really just trying to get them connected to data. I love data, but it can be really scary if people aren't comfortable with data.
So again, it's January 29th.
January 29th.
Between 5 and 8
5
at
and
the
8.
Queso Station. Come on in, learn all things skilled trades. If you're a parent with a child who is thinking about what their future is going to be, this is another great place for you to go to learn everything skilled trades.
No, we want just the employers in the room. This is
this
happening
is
for
only
employers. Only employers.
Oh,
but
okay, well, if I'm sorry, but I'm the employer. I'm going to pretend. No.
Right. We needed, there was the Level Up event that happened in October, which is an incredible event. And it happens, I think, every year. Hopefully it'll come back next year, but it gets all the trades in the room and you can hands-on
kind of
figure
pick
them
out
out.
The trade you think you might like too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, so many years ago, we talked about how parents were part of the block to this too, right?
Oh, there still are.
Well, sure, because everybody wants their child to go to Harvard, but Harvard doesn't have skilled trades. Harvard has, right? So anyway, thank you. This is what we need. Do we answer all of Brett's questions? Because I'm trying to read.
He asked if everyone's welcome. Anyone is welcome. Of course, you can come to the event, and if you're a potential employee, you want to get into the skilled trades, you can come and learn about what's out there. But yeah,
perfect. And what resources are out there as for an employer? Who your contacts are at the community colleges, that type of thing.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, any other questions? Anything to do with the city? I know it's been a bit of a snowy week. We've had some snowplows out there. I'm very proud of our snowplow people and what the city's been able to accomplish. We had a council meeting last night, what may have set a record. It was 25 minutes long. It may have been the quickest council meeting we've ever had, and yet we had to have it because we said we would pass the budget. So we did. We passed the budget last night. What we do is we deliberate on the budget a couple times in December. We get it kind of fine-tuned to where we want. We send it back to the treasurer to make sure all of those boxes balance. He brings it back to us this first meeting in January, and we vote on it. So we did that last night. So there really wasn't much else on the meeting last night, but we had to meet in order to pass the budget. So any other questions you have on city work, let us know.
Yeah. And we've got a follow-up statement from Mark Durbridge, who works at Employment Services Elgin. And he's saying, contact Employment Services Elgin for any additional information or supports. So if you're looking for a job, you can contact them directly.
Yes.
And they will be able to connect you up with that job.
And I follow them a lot. And I also refer a lot of people to there. Have you got your resume? Have you got some thought about what you want to do in life? And sometimes it's a good hard look at yourself and say, what type of jobs am I looking for? And then does my resume match that? Then what is there out there? As you say, job boards are crowded right now. There is a lot of employment opportunities out there, but it's got to match what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And we get there through the workforce development, looking at it in quite a high level.
Yep.
And then places like Employment Services Elgin and Fanshawe College and the other employment agencies, Indeed, I guess also, those types of places that list jobs, and the large job board that you work on, right? So people could pick through, right? I continue to say we're going to be employee rich. We're going to be employer rich in the next 3 years here in St. Thomas. Mm-hmm. And if we're not preparing ourselves today, it's not going to happen overnight where, I think I read something on something the other day where a guy said, well, I'm going to apply and get a job at PowerCo when it's time. Yeah, okay. And that may very well be true. If you're doing the stuff in the background to prepare yourself to get that job, absolutely. But if you need to be employed now at something, because most employers, like myself, will look at a resume and go, there's 2 years missing here. You did nothing for 2 years. What were they? And so there's questions when that happens. So keep yourself employed and keep yourself growing, and then look for the skills you may have to get at community colleges or through the education system to ready yourself for those jobs. So thank you for the Employment Services Elgin and the people out there doing that through the Youth Employment Counseling Center and a number of other places.
Yep. And we've got, I probably expect it's Henry Dryfoot on the line here. And he's saying Employment Services, a fantastic organization, also willing to help. And now he's the chair of the Economic Development Board out in Dunwich. Yeah. So also reach out to them if you're looking for some help there.
And also a fantastic painting company.
Absolutely.
Have used them myself.
Yeah.
So, and great employees, well-trained, come to the job ready to go, a great employer, someone we can point at as the type of employer working in Elgin County. So thank you for your help tonight.
First living wage in Elgin County or St.
was
Thomas, something like that?
Yes, he was. Yeah. He's an early adopter. And he does so many great things to help his employees kind of stay up to the snuff. So
I believe I have a couple of stepchildren that work for Henry along the way, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Very good.
Hannah, Owen, yes.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, Henry, make sure you get the Embrace Skilled Trades info out to your friends out in the West there.
Okay. Yeah. Brett's question was, how is council preparing to support the local workforce amidst effects of potential tariffs? Well, I've got to work down at the level we're at, Brett. You know, I can't negotiate with Mr. Trump as much as I'd love to, but I can work on what there is on the ground here. And there are jobs going wanting right now. There are employers right now saying, I don't have somebody to fill a role I need in order to make the income I'm supposed to need in case we have to pay 25% tariff. So part of what the city's doing is really working with places like the Workforce Development and Employment Services and the Manufacturing Association, the Chamber of Commerce, to look forward for what can we do to make sure we're making a level ground and we're making it easy to plow that ground, to make sure. I would suggest right now as the mayor, I think I can easily suggest there's between 800 and 1,000 jobs going wanting in St. Thomas that could be filled this minute.
Absolutely.
Right? Yep. And yet, where's those 1,000 people? Right? And we need to do it. We need to prove to companies like Format and Element 5, who are doing large expansions in our community, that when they're done their expansion, they'll be the workforce here that they need to do it. And of course, then we can mention PowerCo 2 years from now.
Yeah.
We've got to continue to fill the jobs we currently have as a way of attracting more and more of those higher paying jobs into our community in the future.
Yeah. And we're waiting, we're kind of bracing ourselves for the tariffs. We don't know what's going to happen. I've
learned we can react. We're really good community at reacting. I can't predict. Well, I think we'll have to have a lot of good conversations, and I had a couple of them on the phones today, right? Perfect. And I kept having to remind, yes, but I'm not going to look to the dark side of what might happen. I'm looking to the positive side you need to keep your industry as tight and as viable and as prosperous as you can going forward. If you run into a tariff, you'll be far better off if you're already in good shape. If you're not, then you're going to run into at least a period of time where that may affect your bottom line and therefore your employment ability. So,
we've got a question from Dale, and it's talking about council meetings and whether or not you can speak in public. What's the process in St. Thomas for being able to speak at a council meeting?
You can apply to do a deputation. Council meetings are exactly that. They're meetings of council to review recommendations and bylaws, if you will, that come from us. There's not a public meeting piece. We hold public meetings. We hold mayor's update. We do things that no other communities do in the sense of getting public information. You may write a letter at any time to all council and the city clerk to ask for a deputation. We'll decide whether the deputation warrants it being handled at a council meeting or not, but that would be the first step to that. So.
Very good. And another question is, Brett's asking is, what is the living wage in St. Thomas and how does that compare to locally available housing options? And I think he's probably thinking in terms of the ratio of like what your rent is to what you're getting paid.
The living wage was just updated. I think it's like just above 19.
Yeah, I think it's in that neighborhood. 19, so it's around $19 an hour, I think is about right. Right. After the last inflation numbers come out and the employment numbers come out, and it's a calculation then of medium rents and a bunch of things like that. So
they have standardized the process a little bit. So now it's not a St. Thomas number; it's a London Economic Region
it's a
number.
region
so
number, same
everything's
as our
the
employment
same.
numbers, right?
And the way that it is calculated, living wage is calculated based on a family of 4. So that is two income earners and then 2 children. One of them's in school full time or school like elementary school. The other one's in B&A, like before and after school care. So ECE, like ECE is coming again, childcare. So the calculation's a little bit more complicated, and it's not always. So when you ask that about like rent, it's like if you're looking at a family, then
looking like at a family of 4 and not a single person.
Yes.
Right. And so you have to take into account that that's the living wage in a general sense, but what works for you?
Yeah.
What works across the board? So it's a great indicator. Right?
Yeah.
And many employers have taken it on. Right.
And I think it is that it's an indicator. So it's not something that needs to like be so hard in stone. There's lots of other things you can look at as well.
And that's just recently updated a fair amount over the past, 5 years, a decade?
Well, it almost wasn't a topic 5 or 6 years ago. And
the first calculation was in 2017. So that was, it's really ramping up.
I guess. But look, it's a great way to look at what, first of all, as an employer, where should your wage structure be, right? And how do you fit in with your competitors? But how do you fit in with your workplace, with the community you're doing business into?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I remember when the wage was about $8 an hour, and now Mark Durbridge has just confirmed that it's $19.50 an hour.
$19.50. Okay, so it's seen some incredible growth in even the last couple of years, because I remember $17. So a $19.
That was a big deal.
But this is inflation. Look at the you go to the grocery store. Stephanie and I were talking about that today.
Oh yeah.
Geez, when did this get so expensive?
I was just at the superstore, and like lettuce was like $4.50 for a head of lettuce. And someone was just furious, and they just went off about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and we were talking about it in the sense of coffee, right? But that's again a commodity-based pricing thing too. But inflation has been inflation, and we need to see some stabilization on pricing, and therefore that's look, don't get me started on what taxes are part of. So I just won't go there. Right?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's really ramped up, and the housing costs is included.
And housing costs, although as Petrusia said, we're in a market with London in the both in the employment side and in the housing side. So our housing group, the London housing group, just actually saw a small tick down in rental costs this month, and I hope it's the start of the fact that we've been throwing as much at building supply, so we have a number of it to help bring that price down, or it may be a blip. But we'll continue to strive towards, and you and I have talked about this probably for 3 years now. The amount of supply we can throw at the problem will decrease the cost. It may level it. It may make it what it is today, but that's what we have to do.
Yeah. And the home builders are working hard at that. All the municipal government levels are working at it, as well as federal and provincial. Like everyone's
we're taking all the barriers out on construction and on home building, apartment building, making single family homes into duplex. All of these things, and trying to say yes wherever we can to good housing in our community and more housing in our community. But the last couple of years have been very tough with the way interest rates work, because single family homes stopped selling. It's a good thing we finally all of a sudden started building a bunch of apartments. Right. Because it helped keep the numbers up there, where we had enough housing units out there. They may not be exactly what was needed, but there was a number of them being built. Now, if we can get into both for a couple of years, single family homes, housing additions, and multi-unit apartments, where we can start really attacking. But part of what we're faced with here in Southern Ontario is the migration to St. Thomas and the rest of Southern Ontario is to continue to cause that tightness in housing, right? So when we can find local people jobs, it means we didn't have to bring someone in from outside and find them a house. And that's truly what we're trying to look for in the employment situation with PowerCo and all the other industries that are now growing in our community.
Absolutely. And I would also say one of the big things that's holding us back with building more housing is the skilled trades. What we need is more
Right.
people in the skilled trade. We need a bigger workforce to be able to build more houses. They can only do as much as their workforce is. So,
Right. Well, I'll answer Brett's question here very quickly. What's the local effect on inflation, like the cost of rent? Well, a great deal of it is the cost of material. For if you want to build an apartment building today, it costs you twice what it cost you just 5 years ago to do that.
At least, yeah.
Right. And so if you want to tell me you've got enough money out there to go ahead and build an apartment building for free, go for it. But I know I don't. I know most builders don't. So we've got to allow them to charge what we call market rent. And that affects what the cost of rental is. And the more we do, the more the existing rental market can solidify or decrease and become a more affordable situation.
Mm-hmm.
But we also, as we've shared on this show and many others, with the work we're doing with Eastwood or the YWCA on Tiny Hope and what the work that Doug Terry is a developer is doing, we're putting together and setting aside affordability as much as we can to say that's affordable, right? Yeah. But truly, I mean, I think we kind of have to face this, that there is a market rent out there that we've got to do the workforce development to find jobs that actually covers the market rent that's out there too. So it's both sides of that equation, is not only trying to find an apartment that's cheaper, but maybe finding a job that's paying more too.
Yeah, and if you can find that information through that website,
right?
You can plan it out. All right, well, that's the end of our show. We've come.
Wow, we did it all that quick again tonight.
Yeah, we're already over time. So thanks for joining us, Petrusia. Thanks, Mayor Joe, as always.
Yes.
Thanks to everyone for viewing, and thanks to our sponsors.
Yes.
We'll see you
Can't
next
do
Tuesday.
Without all of you. Please.
Take care, everybody.